Today on How It's Made. Millefiori glass paperweights. Flowers that won't blow away in the wind. Road salt. No, don't put it on your chips. It's for thawing icy roads. Nutcrackers. Wooden dolls that can crush your nuts. And car doors. The manufacturing process is opened up for inspection. But first, Millefiori is Italian for 1,000 flowers. It's also an elaborate glass-making technique developed in 15th century Italy, in which patterned coloured glass rods are cut, grouped to form floral shapes, arranged into intricate patterns, then encased in clear crystal. If you can't afford for your work to blow away, then these paperweights are worth their weight in gold. 2 Canadian artists craft these Millefiori masterpieces, using the same methods the renowned glassmakers of Murano, Italy did centuries ago. A mix containing silica sand, sodium carbonate and lime is heated to 3,100 degrees Celsius, melting it into lead-free liquid crystal. Using a molten crystal post, they pick up a densely coloured bar of glass. They roll and shape the white glass bar, while the crystal post is stabilized with cold water. Then with a torch they preheat an aluminium mold of a flower or other motif. Preheating the mold helps the glass flow into it more easily and assume the shape in greater detail. Once they've molded the coloured glass, they return it to the furnace to encase it in molten crystal. Then they repeatedly heat and shape the crystal with tools and a steaming pile of wet newspaper until the crystal encases the flower-shaped colour evenly. After reheating, they put some molten crystal on the end of another rod and grab the free end of the crystal-encased colour. They wait until the glass cools to a specific consistency. Then they begin to pull. They slowly stretch the glass into a thin and even rod, careful not to twist it, as that would distort the flower shape of the coloured glass inside. This produces what's called a Marini cane, a clear crystal rod with a coloured flowered shape centre. Once the Marini solidifies, they cut it into manageable lengths. Then they take Marini of different colours and designs, cut them into short rods and bundle them into a pattern called a complex Marini. They preheat the complex Marini in a kiln to prevent shock-induced cracking. And after removing the bundling wires, heat and work the group of glass rods into one. They now stretch this complex Marini into what's known as a complex Marini cane. Once the cane stabilizes, they cut it into metre-long lengths, then cool them gradually in a kiln to relieve any stresses in the glass. Then they slice the lengths into 6mm long pieces, the size required for the Millefiori paperweights. Now, using complex Marini pieces of different colours and patterns, they assemble the paperweight design, placing a unique hand-constructed Marini in the centre. This one is a trillium. The finished design is held in position with a heat-resistant graphite ring. After a final adjustment, the artist preheats a white laced patterned glass base they prepared earlier. This base will serve as a blank canvas for the colourful paperweight pattern. They push molten crystal onto the base. The ring preserves the shape. Then they reheat the base, making it smooth and free of air pockets. Preheat the complex Marini setup and stick the base onto it. Like before, the ring maintains the shape. Another overall reheating softens the glass and fully fuses all the components. This fills crevices and smooths the surface. Now they return to the furnace to encase this paperweight core in molten crystal. Using standard glassmaking techniques, they work the crystal to a bulbous shape. Then on the bottom they form a break-off point. A sharp tap on the rod cracks the glass at that point, separating it from the rod. They heat the break-off point and insert a piece of cane bearing the artist's initials. After a 12-hour controlled cooling in the kiln, they grind the base level. Then they polish away the scratches left by the grinding wheel. After a thorough inspection, they're finally ready to be shipped, which may take some time, but all good things come to those who wait. When the road ahead is a sheet of ice, rock salt can make the problem melt away. Salt lowers the melting point of water to thaw ice and also prevents its formation. Salt was first used to de-ice roads and pavements in the 1930s, but it was only in the 1960s that its use spread. Unprocessed rock salt actually looks like the ice it will eventually be used to melt. This salt comes from huge crystalline caverns 300 meters below the Earth's surface along the Canadian-US border. These massive deposits were formed hundreds of millions of years ago when saltwater lakes dried up. The clarity of this rock salt is a sign of its purity. This mineral is 98% sodium chloride, or salt. They extract it in chunks from the rock face by using explosives and drilling. Then a loader scoops up the broken pieces of salt. This is a low-profile loader. It has a shorter height to fit into tight spaces underground. It transfers the salt to the primary crusher. This crusher is a spiked cylinder, and it spins to break the salt into pieces small enough to be moved on a conveyor. The conveyor takes the salt to a production elevator known as a skip. It takes just a minute and a half for the skip to lift its heavy load above ground and up a tower. When it stops, the bottom opens to empty the salty cargo. The salt funnels into two chutes and lands on vibrating screens. These screens are essentially big automated salt shakers. As they pulsate, they shake out the smaller bits, while the large chunks move on to be crushed again. Then it's on to more shaking sifters. These screen out the very fine particles, and what's left will be used as de-icing salt. There are several sifters in this room. They also sift out particles that are about 10 millimeters in size to be used for water softening filters. And for this purpose, the darker bits are seen as undesirable. So they remove those with something called an optical sorter. The optical sorter bounces light off the salt particles, and a computer reads the reflection to determine if they're light or dark. Jets of compressed air then target the dark bits and blast them downward, while the white particles continue forward. A closer look confirms that the optical sorter has done its job effectively. The salt meant for water softening is pure white, while a few darker speckles are acceptable for road salt. Outside in the holding area, the salt accumulates in piles that look like huge snowdrifts. If the winter is harsh, road crews will use it as fast as it piles up. When it comes to bulk purchasing, orders don't come much bigger than this. Highway maintenance departments purchase de-icing salt by the lorry load and create their own stockpiles in case of wintry weather. But individual consumers, of course, buy de-icing salt by the bag. In the packaging department, automated trays relay plastic bags to grippers overhead, and the system moves them forward. Suctioning robot arms pry each bag open. A puff of air further inflates the bag, while a nozzle pipes exact amounts of the de-icing salt into the bag. Once the bag is full, the system moves it forward again, and not a grain of salt is spilled. Finally, a heat sealer melts the plastic to close the package. It only takes about an hour for this rock salt to be mined, crushed, sifted, and packaged. But for keeping our roads clear of ice, car drivers are eternally grateful. Coming up, nutcrackers. In a nutshell, they crack nuts. And car doors. Is our investigation an open and shut case? See you after the break. The first nutcrackers were plain, purely functional devices. By the 15th century, European woodcarvers began crafting beautiful nutcrackers shaped like animals and people. German artisans became known for their majestic nutcracker kings and soldiers, just like the one in Tchaikovsky's famous ballet. This German company has been crafting character nutcrackers since 1928. Like porcelain figurines, these nutcrackers sell as limited edition collectibles. At hundreds of euros each, people don't actually use them for their intended purpose. Strange, but true. But they can and do perform the job. You simply manipulate a lever to open and then close the mouth to crack the nutshell. On the factory floor, they use a multi-blade circular saw to cut all the body parts out of linden wood. Linden is ideal because it's lightweight, easy to carve, and its colour is pale enough to mimic skin. These blocks are on their way to becoming nutcracker torsos. First, they go through a planer. It trims the four sides of each block, forming an octagonal shape. From square to octagonal and next to round. But first, workers use a circular saw to cut the blocks into torso-length pieces. A conveyor feeds the pieces one by one into an automatic multi-station lathe. The first station rounds out the octagon, then forms the basic torso shape. The second station finalizes the shape. Then the next four stations sand the wood smooth, so that the wood stain they'll apply later on will penetrate well and evenly. Then the torsos go three at a time into a vertical router. It cuts a notch in each one for the lever that opens and closes the nutcracker's mouth. The next stop is a drilling machine, which simultaneously drills all the holes required to attach the body parts, as well as the lever's axle. Now they dress the torso in a coat, which they create by simply staining the wood a darker colour. Once the stain dries, they spray on 2 coats of semi-gloss lacquer. Every nutcracker stands on a wooden base, under which they burn the company's logo. It's a mark of authenticity for the collectors. The automatic lathe also shapes the other body parts, including the head. Workers attach a nose, then using a router, cut holes for the eyes. Then they lightly spray on a touch of red paint to simulate a sun-kissed nose and rosy cheeks. Then with a steady hand, they paint the whites of the eyes and the eyebrows. Once the paint dries, they apply some glue to the centre of each eye, then affix an iris and a pupil made of enamelled tin. Now they align the head with the torso and screw the parts together. After decorating the coat with buttons and a buckle, they glue a strip of rabbit fur hair to the head. A rabbit fur beard to camouflage the notch for the lever. Then they mount the torso onto the legs, which wear painted-on boots and stand on the base. Then this nutcracker percussionist gets his drum, along with arms and drumsticks. They top him off with a hat made of spray-painted wood. Most of the nutcracker's parts join together with wooden dowels. A large dowel running across the notch in the torso is the axle on which the lever rotates. There's an extensive cast of nutcracker characters to collect. Their acting may be a bit wooden, but their delivery has real bite. And if you are a collector of these, I suggest you must be nuts. Car doors have come a long way over the last century. They're lighter for improved fuel efficiency and stronger to better withstand the force of an impact. They also now contain a lot of electrical gadgetry, like speakers and power windows, all of which enhances the daily commute. A car door is one of the first things many people reach for as they start their day. So let's unlock the mystery of how it's made. It all starts with carbon steel, an alloy that's strong yet malleable. Machinery uncoils and straightens it. A large blade slices it to the desired length, producing sheets called blanks. Then it's over to a powerful press. This particular one is a trial press, which offers a better view of the process than the one on the production line. The press forces the blank into a die, giving it the basic shape of two car doors. It's a design that's been engineered for both aerodynamics and strength. Back on the production line, the main press is churning out car doors. An automated device with fingers then grips the newly shaped steel and transfers it to a punch cutter. It separates the two doors and trims the excess metal from the edges. With the outer door panels now complete, a handler inspects them for bumps, dents or scratches. He approves only those that are absolutely flawless. The next worker arranges the window frame, a reinforcing plate for the hinge and the inner door panel, all in a special clamping fixture. Its fingers grip the parts to hold them in position as the fixture rotates and two robots move in to weld them together. At the next station, the worker arranges steel bars and tubes on a robotic platform. They add strength to the door, so it will better withstand any impact. He places the inner door panel over the bars and tubes. The robotic platform angles the parts for welding. Another robot applies adhesive to the rim of the outer door panel. More robots dab adhesive at strategic locations. Those dabs match up with the tubes and bars on the inner panel as they mate it to the outer one. A special press then folds the lip of the outer panel over the inner one. This hemming gives the assembled car door a neater edge. With the inner and outer panels now joined, the car door undergoes rust-proofing, paint and other protective treatments. Now over on the assembly line, a worker fits the handle into its niche and bolts it to the door from the other side. Chrome trim is clipped into place. Moving down the line, a worker installs a small fixed window in the groove of the frame. He uses a plastic protector to prevent scratches as he slides the larger window into its slot in the door and links it to the powerlifting mechanism inside. He separates the two windows with a metal divider. At the next station, this car door gets an automated wing mirror. They're now ready for the inner panel and its workings. The employee wires the panel to the door and snaps it into place. He tests the power windows, and they close to a tight seal, indicating a successful installation. A special elevator now lowers the completed car doors 6 meters to the next station. A worker unloads each door with the help of a pneumatic arm. This device shoulders the weight of the part and correctly positions the door for installation. He drives bolts into hinges to attach the door to the car. On the other side, the heavy-duty reinforcement plate surrounds the hinges and supports them. The whole weight of the door will hang on this plate as it swings open and shut. With all the panels installed, it's time for the final adjustments. They call this finessing. They examine each panel to confirm that it's flush to the rest of the car body, and they tweak the installation job where needed. Finally, they're satisfied the assembly is airtight, so it's time to close the door on this production.
One of the greatest unanswered questions tonight on Discovery: how does a ship considered to be unsinkable drown on her maiden voyage? Bill Paxton finds out at 7 in brand new Curiosity: What Sank Titanic?